It's 8 p.m. on August 31st, 1939. Alfred Naujoks, a 28-year-old SS officer, stands outside the Gleiwitz radio station with a team of SD operatives dressed in Polish Army uniforms. In the back of their truck lies Franciszek Honiak, a 43-year-old Silesian farmer with Polish sympathies. He's been drugged with a sedative. He has no idea he's about to become the first casualty of World War II. Naujoks received his orders directly from Reinhard Heydrich. Actual proof of these attacks by the Poles is needed for the foreign press as well as for German propaganda. The SS has codenamed people like Honiak Konserve, canned goods, human props for a false flag operation. At 8 p.m., Naujoks and his team storm the radio station. They fire shots into the ceiling, rough up the staff, and seize the microphone. For exactly 4 minutes, they broadcast a message in Polish and German. Attention! This is Gleiwitz. The broadcasting station is in Polish hands. The hour of freedom has come. Then they drag Honiak's body into the building, shoot him in the head at close range, and arrange him near the entrance. By 8:05 p.m., they're gone. The next morning, Hitler stands before the Reichstag. Last night, Polish regular soldiers fired on our territory for the first time. Since 5:45 a.m., we have been returning fire. He's lying about the time. The invasion actually began at 4:45 a.m. He's lying about who fired first. He's lying about everything. But Franciszek Honiak is genuinely dead, and 60 million more will follow. The first bombs, Wielun. Maria Zagańczyk wakes at 4:30 a.m. in Wielun to begin her shift at the town hospital. It's Friday morning, September 1st. The 16,000 residents of this medieval market town in central Poland are still sleeping. There are no military installations here, no barracks, no fortifications, just a hospital clearly marked with a red cross on its roof, a few churches, and rows of wooden houses. At exactly 4:40 a.m., possibly 5 minutes before the battleship Schleswig-Holstein fires on Westerplatte, 29 Stuka dive bombers appear over Wielun. The screaming begins. The Ju-87 Stuka produces a distinctive wail from its Jericho trumpets, sirens mounted on the landing gear designed to terrorize ground targets. The sound is unlike anything the people of Wielun have ever heard. It's mechanical, inhuman, apocalyptic. The first bombs hit the hospital. Maria Zagańczyk dies instantly along with dozens of patients. The hospital staff who survived the initial blast run into the streets, only to be caught by the second wave. The Stukas circle back again and again in a coordinated attack that lasts 90 minutes. They bomb the town square. They bomb the churches. They bomb the Jewish quarter. They specifically target civilian areas with incendiary bombs, setting the wooden structures ablaze. By 6:10 a.m., when the attack finally ends, between 127 and 1,200 people are dead. 70 to 90% of the town is destroyed. The hospital, bearing the internationally recognized Red Cross, is completely demolished. Wehrmacht troops arrive later that day. They find streets filled with corpses. They find a crater where the hospital once stood. Some soldiers take photographs. Most are horrified. One writes in his diary, "This was no battle. This was murder." German historian Hans-Erich Volkmann would later state, "The bombing of Wielun is regarded as one of the most controversial events of the German invasion, an attack on a non-military target, and therefore as a war crime." Wielun is often called the Polish Guernica. Unlike Guernica, which achieved international notoriety through Picasso's painting, Wielun remained largely unknown outside Poland until recent decades. It represents the deliberate targeting of civilians that would characterize the entire campaign and the entire war. The first battle, Westerplatte, September 1st, 4:45 a.m. The German battleship Schleswig-Holstein sits peacefully in Danzig harbor, having arrived 3 days earlier on what was officially a goodwill visit to commemorate German sailors killed in World War I. The Poles aren't fooled. Major Henryk Sucharski knows exactly what's coming. At precisely 4:45 a.m., the Schleswig-Holstein's 11-inch guns open fire at point-blank range, just 150 meters from the Polish fortifications. The Battle of Westerplatte, the first battle of World War II in Europe, has begun. Sucharski commands the Polish military transit depot at Westerplatte, a tiny peninsula enclave in the free city of Danzig. His garrison consists of 182 to 210 soldiers defending a position measuring just 500 meters by 200 meters. They have one 75mm field gun, two 37mm anti-tank guns, and 4 mortars. That's it. German planners expect the garrison to fall in 15 minutes. They've allocated 4 hours, maximum, September 1st, 5:30 a.m. The first German assault wave, 225 Marines from the Schleswig-Holstein, storms ashore. They're supported by the battleship's guns, which are literally firing over their heads at Polish positions just meters away. The Polish defenders unleash everything they have. Machine gun fire from concealed positions tears into the German Marines. The 75mm field gun, operated by Sergeant Wojciech Nysarek, scores a direct hit on a German ammunition depot, triggering a massive explosion. By 6:15 a.m., the first German assault is broken. Bodies litter the beach. The Marines retreat in disorder. Sucharski sends a radio message to Polish command in Warsaw. Westerplatte Bronicia? Westerplatte fights on. September 2-6. The siege. Over the next 6 days, the Germans throw everything at Westerplatte. Continuous naval bombardment from the Schleswig-Holstein Stuka dive bomber attacks that turn the peninsula into a moonscape, flamethrower assaults that set the wooden barracks on fire. 3 full-scale ground assaults by increasingly large German forces. The Polish garrison shrinks. 15 to 20 men are killed. Dozens more are wounded. The fortifications are systematically demolished. Water supplies are contaminated. Food runs low. The men are surviving on 200 grams of bread per day, but every day without fail, Polish radio broadcasts, Westerplatte broni się jeszcze. Westerplatte still fights on. The defense becomes a national rallying cry. In Warsaw, in Poznan, in cities across Poland, people gather around radios to hear those 4 words. September 7th, 9:45 a.m. The final day. On the 7th day, the Germans commit 3,400 troops, more than 15 times the original Polish garrison, supported by concentrated Stuka attacks. The guardhouse is obliterated. The barracks are burning. The ammunition depot has been hit. Of the original 210 men, fewer than 180 remain combat effective. Sucharski faces an impossible calculation. He's been ordered to hold for 12 hours. He's held for 7 days. His men have performed miracles. But continued resistance means their total annihilation. And for what? Poland is clearly losing the war. At 9:45 a.m., Sucharski orders the white flag raised. German General Friedrich Georg Eberhardt arrives to accept the surrender. He finds Sucharski standing in the ruins, looking decades older than his 43 years. "Where are your men?" Eberhardt asks, expecting to find thousands. Sucharski gestures at the exhausted survivors. "This is all that is left." Eberhardt is so impressed by the defense that he allows Sucharski to keep his ceremonial saber, a gesture of respect rare in this war. He later tells staff officers, "They fought as long as humanly possible." Polish casualties, 15 to 20 killed, 53 wounded. German casualties, approximately 50 killed, 150 plus wounded. Westerplatte becomes Poland's Alamo, its Thermopylae. The 7-day defense, when German planners expected 15 minutes, proves that Polish soldiers can fight with extraordinary courage even when defeat is inevitable. Sucharski, who spent the rest of the war in POW camps, struggled with guilt for surrendering. He died in 1946 at age 50, never fully accepting that his defense had been heroic. The tank killers, Mokra. September 1st, 5 a.m. Colonel Julian Filipowicz commands the Wawinska Cavalry Brigade near the village of Mokra. His men are part of the Polish Army Krakow, defending southern Poland against the expected German attack from Silesia. When the invasion begins, Filipowicz's position is immediately critical. The German 4th Panzer Division, one of Germany's premier armored formations, is driving straight toward him. If they break through, the road to Częstochowa and Krakow lies open. Filipowicz deploys his cavalry brigade in a way that would horrify traditional cavalry commanders and vindicate modern Polish military doctrine. His cavalry brigade consists of 19th Volhynian Uhlan Regiment, Mounted Infantry, 12th Uhlan Regiment, Mounted Infantry, 2 artillery batteries, 75 mm and 100 mm guns, 1 battery of 37 mm Bofors anti-tank guns, TKS tankettes armed with 20 mm cannons, anti-tank rifle companies. This isn't some medieval cavalry charge waiting to happen. This is combined arms warfare using horses for mobility. 8 a.m. The German attack begins. The 4th Panzer Division advances in 3 columns. They're expecting to brush aside light Polish resistance and be in Częstochowa by evening. They run straight into Filipowicz's killing ground. The Polish 75mm guns open fire first, targeting German infantry. Then, the 37mm Bofors anti-tank guns engage the panzers at 800 meters. The tankettes maneuver to flanking positions. Polish infantry, having used their horses to quickly reach defensive positions, dig in with anti-tank rifles. The Germans are stunned. This isn't the primitive Polish army their propaganda described. This is a well-coordinated combined arms defense. 10 am. The counterattack. As the German attack stalls, Filipowicz orders his cavalry to mount up. The 19th Uhlans gallop, not at the panzers, but at the German infantry supporting them. They hit the exposed infantry from the flank, scattering them, then immediately wheel back to their defensive positions before German armor can respond. It's textbook modern cavalry doctrine. Use horses for rapid mobility, dismount to fight, remount to reposition. 2 p.m. The kill count rises. By early afternoon, the battlefield is littered with destroyed German vehicles. The Poles have knocked out approximately 50 German tanks and armored vehicles, an astonishing number for a single cavalry brigade. The Germans commit more forces. Polish ammunition runs low. But the 4th Panzer Division, which expected to be 30 kilometers past Mokra by now, is still fighting for the same ground they attacked at 8 a.m. 6 p.m. The withdrawal, Filipowicz receives devastating news. German forces have broken through on his flanks. If he doesn't withdraw, his entire brigade will be encircled and destroyed. He orders a fighting retreat. Under cover of darkness, the Wawinska Cavalry Brigade disengages and falls back toward new positions. The Battle of Mokra demolishes the myth of Polish military incompetence. A single cavalry brigade held off an entire panzer division for 12 hours and destroyed 50 armored vehicles. The 4th Panzer Division was delayed an entire day, crucial time that allowed Polish forces to the east to establish better defensive positions. The myth is born, Krojanty. September 1st, 6:30 p.m. Colonel Kazimierz Mastalers leads the 18th Pomeranian Uhlan Regiment through the forests of Pomerania. It's late afternoon on September 1st. The invasion is only 14 hours old. His regiment has been conducting delaying actions all day, harassing German columns, then melting back into the forest. Mastalers' scouts report German infantry, approximately 2 companies from the 20th Motorized Infantry Division, resting in a clearing near Krojanty. They've dismounted from their vehicles and are making camp, apparently believing the area is secure. Mastalers sees an opportunity. The German infantry are vulnerable. If he hits them hard and fast, he can inflict significant casualties and delay their advance. He never sees the German armored cars concealed in the woods on the far side of the clearing. 6:45 p.m. The Charge Mastellaires orders his men to draw sabers and form into 2 squadrons. Then he gives the command that will echo through history, though not in the way he intended. Squadron at the trot, draw sabers, charge. 250. Polish cavalry thunder out of the forest at full gallop, sabers raised. The German infantry, completely surprised, scatter in panic. Some fire a few shots, but most just run. It's chaos. The charge succeeds brilliantly for exactly 90 seconds. Then everything goes wrong. German armored cars, Sti KFZ, 221s and 222s, equipped with 20 mm autocannons, emerge from the woods on the opposite side. They're positioned perfectly to enfilade the Polish cavalry. The autocannons open fire. At this range, against cavalry in the open, it's a massacre. Horses and men go down in heaps. The charge disintegrates. The survivors wheel back toward the forest, desperately trying to reach cover. Mastellaires is killed in the first seconds of fire. His body, along with dozens of others, lies scattered across the clearing. September 2nd at 10:07 a.m. The birth of a myth. The next morning, German commanders bring a group of Italian war correspondents to view the battlefield. The journalists see exactly what the Germans want them to see: dozens of dead cavalry and horses lying near German tanks. The tanks weren't there during the battle. They arrived hours later. But the Germans don't mention that. Italian correspondent Indro Montanelli writes, "Polish cavalry charged German tanks with lances and sabers." The story spreads. Nazi propaganda amplifies it gleefully. Brave but foolish Poles attacking modern German armor with medieval weapons. Within days, the myth of Polish cavalry charging tanks becomes accepted fact across Europe and America. It will persist for 80 years. The truth is far different. The 18th Uhlans charged German infantry, not tanks. They were using sabers, not lances, which had been discontinued in 1937. The charge initially succeeded before armored cars intervened. This was sound cavalry tactics: exploit exposed infantry before they can form defensive positions. Colonel Mastellaires dies achieving a successful cavalry charge against infantry, a perfectly legitimate and effective tactic. History remembers him as a fool who charged tanks. It's perhaps the most successful piece of Nazi propaganda from the entire war. The Polish Thermopylae, Wizna. September 7th, 6 a.m. Captain Władysław Raginis, a 32-year-old engineer officer, commands what amounts to a suicide position. He holds the Wizna crossing over the Biebrza River with 1,000 soldiers, mostly reservists, 18 fortified bunkers, 6 field guns, some machine guns, and anti-tank rifles. Almost no air support, almost no artillery support, no realistic hope of reinforcement. Behind him stretches the only good road leading to Brest and Warsaw. In front of him, reconnaissance reports that German General Heinz Guderian, the architect of Blitzkrieg, is bringing his entire 19th Panzer Corps straight at Wizna. 40,000 men, 350 tanks, hundreds of artillery pieces, air superiority. Raginis knows exactly what his orders mean: hold the crossing long enough for Polish forces to the south to establish new defensive lines. Buy time with lives. He gathers his officers. "We are going to defend this position to the last man. I am not leaving my position alive. I expect the same from you." September 7th, 8th, the first assaults. The Germans begin with artillery. For hours, shells hammer the Polish bunkers. Then Stukas arrive, methodically bombing each fortified position. When the barrage lifts, German infantry attack supported by tanks. They run into withering fire from the Polish bunkers. The reinforced concrete bunkers, built in the 1930s as part of Poland's northern defense line, are well designed. Direct hits from 76 mm guns stop tanks cold. Machine gun fire cuts down infantry. The first assault is repulsed, then the second, then the third. Guderian is furious. His vaunted Panzer Corps, which has been racing across Poland at 30-40 kilometers per day, is stopped cold by fewer than 1,000 Polish defenders in a swamp. September 9th. Maximum effort. Guderian commits overwhelming force. The artillery barrage intensifies. Stuka attacks continue all day. German combat engineers begin methodically reducing the bunkers one by one with flamethrowers and explosive charges. Polish positions are systematically destroyed. Bunker number 1 falls, then number 3, then number 7. The men fight from the rubble. Casualties mount. Food and water run out. Medical supplies are exhausted. Ammunition dwindles. But the Polish line holds. September 10th, 10 a.m., the final hour. After 3 days of fighting, only a handful of bunkers remain functional. Of Reginis's original 1,000 men, perhaps 40 are still combat effective. They're surrounded, cut off, out of ammunition, German. Troops close in on Reginis's command bunker. The captain gathers his surviving officers. "I swore I would not leave this position alive. I order you to surrender. Save those who can be saved." He salutes them. Then he picks up a live hand grenade, holds it to his chest, and detonates it. The defenders surrender shortly afterward. Polish casualties, 600-900 killed. German casualties, approximately 900 killed, 1,000 plus wounded, though German sources claim only 167 dead. The Battle of Wizna delayed Guderian's 19th Panzer Corps for 3 full days, an eternity in Blitzkrieg warfare. When Guderian finally broke through, his timetable was completely disrupted. The 140 ratio, 700 Poles versus 40,000 Germans, compares favorably to Thermopylae, 7,000 Greeks versus 150,000 Persians. The Spartans held for 3 days. So did Reginis. In Poland, Wizna is sacred ground. Monuments commemorate Reginis and his men. The bunkers are preserved as museums. But outside Poland, almost nobody knows the battle happened. There was no Herodotus to record it for history. The Great Counteroffensive. Bzura. September 9th. The decision General Tadeusz Kutrzeba commands Army Poznań, approximately 90,000 men who have been conducting a fighting withdrawal southeast toward Warsaw. Intelligence reports indicate German forces to his south are vulnerable. The German 8th Army is extended, with its supply lines stretched thin. Kutrzeba sees an opportunity. If he attacks south into the German flank, he might cut their supply lines and even encircle German units. It's audacious. It's risky. But Poland is losing the war. Doing nothing means certain defeat. An attack might change everything. He proposes the plan to Marshal Śmigły-Rydz. After some hesitation, Rydz approves. The Battle of Bzura, Poland's largest counteroffensive of the entire campaign, is about to begin. September 9th, 11. The attack on September 9th, Kutrzeba wheels his entire army south and smashes into the German 30th Infantry Division near Łęczyca. The Germans are completely surprised. Polish forces, which were supposed to be retreating in disorder, are suddenly attacking in strength. Within 24 hours, Polish forces advance 25 kilometers and capture thousands of German prisoners. The German 30th Division is shattered. German 8th Army headquarters is nearly overrun. Staff officers grab rifles and man defensive positions. For 3 days, the Polish attack succeeds beyond anyone's expectations. By September 11th, Kutrzeba has pushed 40 kilometers into German territory and threatens to cut the supply lines of the entire German 8th Army. In Berlin, Wehrmacht High Command panics. They redirect units heading toward Warsaw. They commit Luftwaffe bombers in mass. They even recall some panzer divisions. September 12th, 14. The German response. But Poland lacks the air power and artillery to exploit its initial success. The Luftwaffe, with complete air superiority, begins systematically destroying Polish columns. German General Johannes. Blaskowitz rushes reinforcements from all directions. Instead of cutting German supply lines, Kuturzeba suddenly finds himself surrounded by converging German forces. By September 14th, the Polish offensive has stalled. Now Kuturzeba faces a new problem, extricating his army before it's encircled and destroyed. September 15-19, the pocket German forces close the trap. Army Poznan and Army Pomorze, 170,000 men, are surrounded in a pocket along the Bzura River. Luftwaffe bombers attack in waves. German artillery pounds Polish positions. Attempts to break out are bloodily repulsed. Ammunition runs out. Food supplies are exhausted. Thousands of wounded have no medical care. Men drink from the Bzura River, despite knowing it's contaminated with corpses. On September 16th, Kuturzeba makes a desperate decision: divide his forces. Some units will break out toward Warsaw. The rest will buy time with their lives. September 18-19. The breakout under cover of darkness. Approximately 50,000 Polish soldiers attempt to break through German lines and reach Warsaw. It's chaos. Units become separated in the dark. German machine guns cut down entire companies. But thousands make it through. Those who don't are either killed or surrender. By September 19th, the Battle of Bzura is over. Polish casualties: 18,000, 20,000 killed, 150,000 plus captured, though 50,000 escaped. German casualties: 8,000 Tars, 10,000 Tars killed, significant numbers wounded. Bzura was Poland's last chance to alter the campaign's outcome. For 3 days, it looked like it might succeed. Kuturzeba's counteroffensive forced Germans to redirect units away from Warsaw, delayed the fall of Warsaw by at least a week, destroyed or severely damaged several German divisions, and proved Polish forces could still mount coordinated offensive operations. But ultimately, without air power and with the Soviet invasion looming, the offensive was doomed. The men who died at Bzura bought time, but not enough. Kuturzeba survived the battle and the war. He died in 1947, age 56, reportedly bitter that the West never understood how hard Poland fought. The capital endures. Warsaw. September 8th. The encirclement German advance units reach the outskirts of Warsaw just 1 week into the campaign. General Johannes Blaskowitz's 8th Army begins surrounding the city while waiting for reinforcements. Inside Warsaw, General Walerian Chuma faces an impossible task: defend Poland's capital with whatever forces he can scrape together. He has $70,000, 80,000 regular army troops, 60,000 plus poorly trained reserves, 100,000 civilians enrolled in civil defense, inadequate ammunition stocks, almost no air cover, and no realistic hope of relief. But he has one massive advantage: the population of Warsaw is willing to fight. September 9-16, building the defenses. While the Battle of Bzura rages to the west, Warsaw's population mobilizes for siege. Civilians dig anti-tank ditches. Buildings are fortified with sandbags. Barricades appear at every intersection. Women and teenagers join fire brigades and medical teams. The city's factories retool to produce ammunition and simple weapons. One plant manufactures 50,000 Molotov cocktails. Another produces improvised hand grenades from pipes and gunpowder. Mayor Stefan Starzyński broadcasts daily radio addresses urging resistance. Citizens of Warsaw, the enemy is hammering at our gates. We shall defend each inch of our beloved city. No one who loves Poland and honors her will leave the capital now. September 17th, the Soviet betrayal news arrives that devastates morale. The Soviet Union has invaded Poland from the east. There will be no relief from that direction. Warsaw is truly alone. Yet the city fights on. September 17th, 25, the bombardment. The Germans begin systematic destruction of Warsaw. Artillery pounds the city 24 hours a day. Luftwaffe bombers, freed up from the rest of Poland, arrive in waves. On September 25th, the Luftwaffe launches its heaviest raid. 150 aircraft drop 560 tons of high explosive and 72 tons of incendiaries. 30,000 civilians are killed or wounded in a single day. Entire neighborhoods burn. The raid equals approximately 1/10 of the entire tonnage dropped on London during the Blitz. Concentrated into 10 hours. On one city. Polish anti-aircraft guns shoot down 14 German aircraft. But it's not nearly enough. September 26th. Water and fire. By September 26th, conditions in Warsaw are apocalyptic. The water system is destroyed. No running water. Gas mains are shattered. Electricity is out across most of the city. 25% of buildings are damaged or destroyed. Food supplies are critically low. Approximately 40,000 civilians are dead. Hospitals overflow with wounded. And still the city fights. September 27th. The surrendered General Zuma finally accepts reality. Continued resistance means the complete annihilation of the civilian population and for no strategic purpose. Poland has already lost. At 11 a.m., negotiators approach German lines under a white flag. At 2 p.m., the surrender is signed. Polish forces will lay down arms at 8 p.m. When German troops enter the next day, they're shocked by what they find. One German officer writes, "The city is a field of ruins. How they held out so long is incomprehensible." Polish military casualties, 2,000 killed, 16,000 wounded. Polish civilian casualties, 25,000, 40,000 killed, 50,000 plus wounded. German casualties, 2,000 plus killed, 9,000 plus wounded. Stefan Starzyński, the mayor who rallied the city, refuses to flee. The Germans arrest him in October. He's executed in 1943 in the Palmary Massacre. The Warsaw that surrendered on September 27, 1939, would suffer far worse. The 1943 Ghetto Uprising and the 1944 Warsaw Uprising would reduce the city to rubble. By war's end, 85% of Warsaw was destroyed. But in September 1939, the 19-day defense of Warsaw showed the world that Poland would not surrender without a fight. The second invasion, September 17th, 3 a.m. Soviet Ambassador Ivan Mayski meets with Polish Ambassador Edward Raczynski in London. Mayski delivers a prepared statement. The Polish state has ceased to exist. Therefore, the Soviet Union must protect Ukrainian and Belarusian minorities in eastern Poland. It's diplomatic double-talk for invasion. At the same moment in Moscow, 5 a.m. Polish time, Polish Ambassador Wacław Grzybowski is summoned to the Soviet Foreign Ministry. He's handed a note declaring that Poland has disintegrated and Soviet troops are crossing the border to protect Soviet interests. Grzybowski refuses to accept the note, dropping it on the desk. It doesn't matter. At that exact moment, Soviet forces are already invading. September 17th, 4:40 a.m., the Red Army crosses. Along a 1,400-kilometer border, 600,000 Soviet troops pour into eastern Poland. They're organized into two fronts, Belarusian Front, Mikhail Kovalev. 300,000 men targeting northern Poland Ukrainian Front, Semyon Timoshenko. 300,000 men targeting southern Poland. The force ratio is devastating. 4,700 Soviet tanks against perhaps 200 Polish tanks remaining in the east. 2,000 Soviet aircraft against virtually no Polish air presence. The Polish forces face an impossible question. Do they fight the Soviets? If yes, they're fighting a two-front war and have zero chance of victory. If no, they're surrendering without resistance to an invading army. Different commanders make different choices. September 17th, 18. Minimal resistance. Most Polish units are still engaged with Germans to the west. Eastern Poland is defended by border guards, KOP, Korpus Ochrony Pogranicza, police units, and scattered military units retreating eastward. At some locations, Polish forces fight. At Grodno, 2,500 Polish troops hold against 30,000 Soviets from September 2022. But mostly, Polish forces try to avoid the Soviets and continue fighting west against the Germans. September 17th, 19. The Soviet advance. Soviet forces advance at astonishing speed, not because they're fighting hard, but because they're barely meeting resistance. By September 19th, Soviet forces have advanced to 150-200 kilometers. Vilnius falls. Grodno is surrounded. Brest-Litovsk is reached. September 22nd, the meeting at Brest, German General Heinz Guderian meets Soviet General Semyon Krivoshein in Brest-Litovsk. The city has just fallen to German forces. Now they're handing it over to the Soviets per the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The two generals watch a joint German-Soviet victory parade. German and Soviet flags fly side by side. Bands play. Officers shake hands and toast their alliance. Photographs of the event will be deeply embarrassing to both sides after June 1941. September 17th, October 6th, the roundup. Over the following weeks, Soviet forces capture $250,000 Polish POWs and arrest approximately 22,000 Polish officers. Mass deportations of hostile elements begin. Rigged referendums in occupied territories follow. The arrested officers are sent to camps in Kozelsk, Starobilsk, and Ostashkov. In spring 1940, the NKVD will murder approximately 22,000 of them in the Katyn massacre. Many Polish soldiers choose to escape. Approximately 85,000 make it to Romania, Lithuania, or Hungary. From there, thousands will eventually reach France and Britain to continue fighting. The Soviet invasion destroyed any remaining hope for Polish victory. It's sometimes called the Second Stab, Soviets, after the First Stab, Germans. For 50 years, Soviet propaganda portrayed the invasion as a liberation of Ukrainians and Belarusians from Polish oppression. Only in 1989 did the Soviet Union acknowledge the secret protocols of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Official Soviet casualties: 1,575 killed, 2,283 wounded. Polish estimates: 3,000, 10,000 killed. The low casualties reflect limited Polish resistance rather than Soviet military prowess. The Last Stand, Kock, October 2, 1939. By early October, organized Polish resistance has collapsed everywhere, except one place. Near the village of Kock in eastern Poland, General Franciszek Kleeberg commands the last cohesive Polish force still fighting. Kleeberg's independent operational group Policy consists of approximately 17,000 men who have been fighting a running battle for a month. They've faced Germans, Soviets, and every conceivable hardship. They're exhausted, low on ammunition, and surrounded by overwhelming force. But they haven't surrendered. October 2nd to 4th. The encirclement German forces under General Werner Kienitz systematically tighten the noose around Kock. They commit 30,000 troops, artillery, and air support. The Poles have nowhere to run. Soviets are to the east, Germans surround them everywhere else. Kleeberg receives offers to surrender with honor. He refuses. He receives reports that the government in exile has fled to France. He keeps fighting. He learns that Warsaw surrendered a week ago. He keeps fighting. October 5th, the last battle. On October 5th, German forces launch their final assault. Artillery pounds Polish positions, Stukas, dive bomb in waves. German infantry attack from multiple directions. Polish forces, some units down to their last magazine of ammunition, fight from buildings, forests, and hasty fieldworks. They knock out several German tanks with their few remaining anti-tank guns. They mount local counterattacks with bayonets when ammunition runs out. But by evening, further resistance is futile. October 6th, 10 Skaiks, a.m. The last surrender. General Kleeberg accepts surrender terms. At exactly 10 a.m. on October 6, 1939, his forces lay down their weapons. The German commander, acknowledging Kleeberg's stubborn defense, allows Polish officers to keep their swords and permits them to march out with colors flying. As Polish forces march into captivity, German soldiers stand at attention. Some salute. After 36 days of war, even enemies can recognize courage. The Battle of Kock was the last significant engagement of the Polish September campaign. With its end, all, Organized Polish resistance on Polish soil ceased. Approximately 170,000 Polish POWs were in German custody. 200,000 plus were in Soviet custody. Poland had officially lost its independence. But the war wasn't over. The government in exile would continue operating from France and then Britain. Polish forces would fight in Norway, France, North Africa, Italy, and Western Europe. Polish pilots would help win the Battle of Britain. Polish intelligence would contribute to Ultra. General Kleberg spent the rest of the war in German POW camps. He was offered release if he would collaborate with the Germans. He refused. He died in 1941 in a POW camp at age 57. His last words, reportedly, were, "I did my duty." The partition. The German-Soviet Boundary and Friendship Treaty of September 28, 1939, formalized Poland's partition. Germany directly annexed approximately 92,500 square kilometers with 10.5 million inhabitants, creating the general government, 94,000 square kilometers, 12 million inhabitants, capital Krakow, from the remainder of its zone. The Soviet Union absorbed 200,000 square kilometers, 51.6% of Polish territory, with 13.5 million inhabitants into the Ukrainian and Belarusian SSRs. Mass deportations followed. Approximately 1 million Poles were deported to the Soviet interior between 1940 and 1941. The Katyn massacre of spring 1940, in which the NKVD executed approximately 22,000 Polish officers, police, and intelligentsia, was concealed by the Soviet Union until 1990 and remains a source of Polish-Russian tension. The war crimes. German atrocities began from the first hours. Operation Tannenberg deployed 7 Einsatzgruppen, SS death squads, totaling 2,700–4,250 men with precompiled lists of 61,000 Poles targeted for arrest or execution. By the end of 1939, approximately 65,000 Polish civilians had been murdered, including 7,000 Jews. Documented massacres include Częstochowa, September 4th, 1,140 plus, civilians killed, Piaśnica Forest, 12,000, 16,000 murdered, and Szpangawski Forest, 2,413, 7,000 murdered. The Wehrmacht itself committed atrocities. At least 3,000 Polish POWs were murdered in 63 documented shooting incidents. The Chiepielov massacre, September 8th, killed approximately 300 prisoners. Such systematic violence against prisoners and civilians established patterns that would expand throughout the war. The final accounting duration, 36 days, September 1st, October 6, 1939. Polish casualties, 66,000, plus military dead, 100,000 plus civilians, killed 587,000 POWs, German custody. 200,000, 250,000 POWs, Soviet custody. 300,000 plus refugees fled to neighboring countries. German casualties, 16,000, 17,000 dead, 30,000 plus wounded, 993 tanks and armored cars destroyed or damaged. 400 plus aircraft lost 8 months' worth of ammunition and fuel consumed Soviet casualties. 1,475 killed, official figures. 2,383 wounded Polish estimates. 3,000 to 10,000 killed. What Poland achieved. Despite losing, Poland forced Germany to commit its entire army, inflicted 8 months' worth of ammunition and fuel expenditure on the Wehrmacht, destroyed nearly 1,000 German tanks and 400 aircraft, delayed German plans by critical weeks, proved that determined resistance was possible, and provided Allied intelligence, including Enigma methodology, that shortened the war by years. What Poland could not overcome. Poland faced a 2-pawn numerical disadvantage against Germans alone, complete German air superiority. Luftwaffe destroyed Polish Air Force in first 3 days, fighting on 2 fronts after Soviet invasion, Allied failure to launch meaningful offensive in West, outdated defensive doctrine, defending entire border was impossible, and geographic reality. Poland cannot be defended without strong allies. The historical judgment. Modern historians recognize that Poland faced impossible odds. Outnumbered, surrounded, and fighting the two most powerful armies in Europe simultaneously, Poland lasted longer than France would in 1940, 36 days versus 46 days. But France had British support and didn't face a second invasion from the east. The campaign established patterns, Blitzkrieg tactics, systematic atrocities, cynical great power collaboration that would define World War II. And it demonstrated that Poland, invaded 40 times in its history, would never surrender easily. The legacy British Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding later acknowledged, "Had it not been for the magnificent work of the Polish squadrons and their unsurpassed gallantry, I hesitate to say the outcome of the battle would have been the same." The 145 Polish pilots who served in the RAF during the Battle of Britain, including No. 303 Squadron, which achieved the highest kill count of any Allied unit, continued a resistance that September's defeat had only begun. Polish mathematicians Marian Rejewski, Jerzy Rojicki, and Henryk Zygalski, who had broken the Enigma cipher in 1932, handed complete Enigma methodology and replica machines to British and French intelligence on July 25, 1939. Historians estimate that ultra-intelligence derived from Polish work shortened the war by 2 to 3 years. The gold evacuation, approximately 80 tons valued at $64 million, preserved the financial foundation for the Polish government in exile throughout the war. The invasion's true significance lies not in the territorial changes it produced, which lasted only until 1945, but in the moral lines it drew and the patterns it established. The systematic murder of civilians, the cynical partition of nations, the failure of collective security, these themes would define the entire war and shape the post-war order that emerged from its ashes. September 1st is commemorated annually in Poland with 4:45 a.m. ceremonies at Westerplatte, featuring alarm sirens and high-level government attendance. In 2022, archaeologists discovered remains of 9 defenders during excavations. 6 have been identified and received full military honors. At the 80th anniversary commemoration, Weimar in 2019, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier spoke in German and Polish at Wielun. "I bow my head before the Polish victims of Germany's tyranny, and I ask forgiveness." The reparations question remains unresolved. Poland's previous government formally requested $1.3 trillion in 2022, arguing that the 1953 renunciation was made under Soviet pressure. Germany maintains the matter is legally settled. Russia was not invited to 2019 commemorations due to its annexation of Crimea and ongoing rehabilitation of Stalinist history. Russian official narratives continue to minimize the Soviet role as co-aggressor. In 2022, Putin claimed Western territories of Poland are a gift from Stalin. The wounds remain open. The debates continue. But the facts are clear. In September 1939, Poland faced impossible odds and fought with extraordinary courage. Its defeat was inevitable. Its resistance was not. For 36 days, Poland showed the world what it meant to fight against tyranny. That lesson remains as relevant today as it was 85 years ago.